Okay, girls, we are on lesson 4 today of the Ulster Plantation. So in the last class, we looked at some of the build-up to the plantation. So I got you to draw 4 little boxes talking about the different build-up. Remember, we had the O'Neills and the O'Donnells, who were the most important or most powerful Gaelic Irish chiefs. And for a number of years, they had been fighting with the English soldiers. And eventually then they left in 1607, the flight of the Earls. They left Ulster and they went abroad to mainland Europe to try and get some help. So King James was in power at this time, and he saw this as his chance then to take their land and to put his own people living on the land. Okay. And girls, if you look in your books, it will be on page 134 and 135 today. So we're going to talk today about what the actual plantation entailed. So it began in 1610. So remember, the flight of the Earls was 1607. Then it took a couple of years for James to get himself organised. We're going to be looking today then how the land was surveyed. Okay, so all of the land in Ulster, and who were the different groups that were given land by James I, King James I. Okay, so the first thing he did was he had to survey the land. So he got his map makers to go out into the 6 counties, so Derry, Donegal, Cavan, Tyrone, Fermanagh and Armagh. These were the 6 counties of Ulster that were going to be planted. So he sent a commission of inquiry to go around to these counties and to investigate who owned what land. Okay. This commission had soldiers with them protecting them, because obviously the local people were not going to be too happy about this, that their land was going to be taken over and confiscated. So they surveyed all the land and they created maps, such as this one here. Now I know it's very blurry and you can't really see it in detail, but for this time, 400 years ago, this was actually quite a detailed map with a lot of information on it. So the commission then that were surveying the land, they divided the land into 2 different parts. There was the crown land, which is the land that was going to belong to the king, and the church land, which was going to belong to the Protestant church. Okay, so remember, girls, James I is wanting to spread the Protestant religion. So some land was confiscated to be given to the Protestant church, and it wasn't to be given to any Catholic churches. Okay. Now, there were different groups of people who were going to get land here. There were the Undertakers, the Servitors, and the Loyal Irish. Okay, so there's the 3. You can see them written there. That's a picture of James, King James there on the right-hand side. So he wanted loyal settlers, and some of these loyal settlers were soldiers who had fought for him in the past, so he knew that they were loyal to him. There's the 6 counties there. Now, the land was divided up into 3 different types of estates. You could be given 1,000 acres, 1,500 acres, and 2,000 acres. Okay, so you could be given one of those categories of land. Okay, so take that slide down there for me. So there's 6 counties there, the groupings of the land, and the 3 different groups of people, which we're going to come to now in a second. Okay, so here are the different groups of people. And girls, you'll be taking this little table down as well in your copies. So the first group of people were the Undertakers. Now, these were English and Scottish people. So these are people that came over from England and Scotland. They left their homes in England and Scotland, and they came over to Ireland, and they were given land in Ulster. Now, they didn't have to pay very high rent. So they had to pay £5.33 per 1,000 acres. Okay, so they got low cost land. And one of the conditions were that they were not allowed to rent any of their land to Irish tenants. Okay, so obviously, girls, when these men came over and they were given a big plot of land, they needed help on the land. They can't farm that land all by themselves. So the idea is that they're going to take on tenants. They're going to rent out plots of land to people. But they were not allowed, because they're given this land at low rent, and these are seen as being the most loyal people to the king. They're not allowed to have any Irish tenants living on their land. Now, the second group of people were the servitors. These are English soldiers who were owed wages after the 9 Years' War. So the 9 Years' War were the wars that had been going on in Ulster, fighting against the O'Neills and the O'Donnells. So these had been soldiers who had come over from England to fight for the king against the O'Neills and the O'Donnells and the Irish clans. And so then, as a reward for their hard work, or as a payment, they were also going to be given some land. Now, they had to pay a bit more rent. They had to pay £8 per 1,000 acres. And they were allowed to have Irish tenants on their land. Okay, so they were allowed to rent out plots of land to the Irish. Now, the third group of people were the loyal Irish. Okay, so James wasn't anti-Irish. Okay, he just wanted to make sure that he had loyal people, people who were loyal to the crown and loyal to England. So he gave land, or he rented out land to some of the Gaelic Irish lords who hadn't been involved in the rebellion, who hadn't fought against him. Now, they had to pay a much higher rent for their land. They had to pay £10.46 per 1,000 acres. And again, they were allowed to rent out their land to Irish tenants. So you can see there, the loyal Irish had to pay twice the amount of rent that the English and Scottish had to pay. Okay. Now, there were some, when you were given land, you had to fulfill certain conditions, okay? Because obviously some of the Irish people, a lot of the Irish people, are not going to be happy that Irish land has been taken away and it's been given to English and Scottish, and that they're not going to be allowed to farm on some of this land. So in order to protect themselves, they had to build some defences. Okay, so these Undertakers, Servitors and Loyal Irish had to build defences. Now, there are different types of defences. So if you were given 1,000 acres to rent, you had to build a stone wall around your fields, okay, called a bawn. So you had to build a wall around your land. And there's a picture of a bawn there in the top right corner. Now, if you were given a bigger plot of land, 1,500 acres, you had to build a bawn, which is a wall, and a stone house. Okay, so you had to build a house as well. So we're starting to see now how the area is being settled. Okay, so the settlement patterns are now changing. So if you were given 2,000 acres, so if you were given a large plot of land, you had to build the bawn and with a house, and you had to build a defensive tower, okay, so that you could, have maybe some people positioned there to look around and make sure that there was no attacks in sight. So the landscape of Ulster changed because of this, okay, so you had lots of new buildings being built, walls being built, towers being built. And so this changed the settlement patterns of the area. And remember, girls, the learning outcome for this topic, I'm just going to go back to the very start, because the learning outcome is also about settlement. Okay, so girls, we're starting to go into the learning outcome there. To recognise how a pattern of settlement and plantation influenced the identity on the island of Ireland. So guys, we're starting to look at now how settlement changed, where people were living, what kind of buildings were being built. Okay, so that is it for this lesson. I want you to take down the all of the things from from this lesson. So you're going to be taking down the 2 tables. You're going to be taking down this information here, this table here, and this table here. And girls, you can just draw, where I have the photographs, you can draw a little sketch about what is the meaning of a bawn and a stone house, and a bawn and a defensive tower. And I have some homework that I'd like you to do. It is on the Google Classroom. I want you to research Bellamy House. Bellamy Bawn is a famous bawn in Northern Ireland, and I want you to do a little bit of research on that for me, and that's going to be your homework. But have a look on the Google Classroom where you'll get all the details for that.